You're complaining about your hard life and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
No.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, they insist that you go along with their nonsense and their insanity and their fragility.
His heart is even more beautiful.
Oh, but his heart is even more beautiful. This is so forced.
I know that I'm a great friend, and I know the kind of mom I am.
I'm searching for something to like about her, and it's so hard.
They're ridiculous.
Also a fox. If you haven't noticed, my husband's very, very handsome.
The beginning of that clip where she's like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
It's so inauthentic.
She is a malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim.
I knew her a bit. She was nothing like that. She didn't speak like that. Her mannerisms weren't like that. This is all fake.
And it's unacceptable. And it's just got to stop.
H.
Why do you call him H? It's so dumb sounding.
She's trying to sell herself as this wholesome mother who's baking cookies and making tea, but we all know that that's not the truth.
Bill Maher absolutely did not hold back on Meghan Markle's latest appearance on Jamie Kern Lima's podcast. And folks, it was a spectacular takedown that has truly set the internet on fire. This one appearance has ignited a massive firestorm of criticism, with just about everyone having something to say. Maher really cut to the chase, pointing out the glaring issue of her complaining despite living a life of incredible privilege.
You're complaining about your hard life and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
It's ridiculous. I totally agree.
It's that exact sentiment that has so many people nodding along with Bill. He seems to be tired of the constant narrative of struggle when the reality looks so different to most people watching. Maher then doubled down, basically saying he refuses to play along with what he sees as their demands for everyone to accept their version of reality, no matter how fragile or nonsensical it might seem.
That's what's so annoying about them. The most of all, they insist that you go along with their nonsense and their insanity and their fragility.
Beyond Maher's points, the podcast itself is being widely branded as just plain cringe. It was supposed to be this raw, authentic look into her life, but a whole lot of people are not buying that for a second. The performance felt off to many, almost like watching someone try way too hard to convince you of something.
The beginning of that clip where she's like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
It's so inauthentic.
This podcast wasn't just a one-off misstep in many people's eyes. For many, it was classic Meghan, raising the same old questions. But what exactly went so wrong this time to cause such an explosion? Let's dig into this whole authenticity thing, because that's where things really started to unravel for many. One of the first things that got people talking was the claim that Meghan appeared for this podcast raw and without makeup, but that story quickly got picked apart. Critics immediately pointed out that she looked a little too polished for someone supposedly caught off guard.
First of all, she had the hair blown out. It was perfect. I do not believe that she was makeup-free there. She didn't have eye makeup on, which is a different thing.
So, the no makeup moment didn't quite land as genuine for many viewers. Then came the tears, or rather, the lack of them, which became a huge talking point. She appeared to be emotional, but eagle-eyed viewers and commentators noticed something was distinctly missing when they looked closer.
Pretending that she's crying, like we zoomed in just to see. There isn't a tear in sight. Look at this.
The idea of crocodile tears started floating around, especially given her background as an actress. It's a known skill for performers to be able to summon emotion on cue, isn't it? This led to even more skepticism about whether her display was heartfelt or just a well-rehearsed bit of acting.
Where she says one tap left eye and she can make herself cry on demand.
It's crazy. They're like, Meghan, one tear, left eye, go. Give me 3 seconds.
What?
And it wasn't just the lack of actual tears. Body language experts also weighed in. They suggested that her facial expressions and overall demeanor during these supposedly emotional moments felt forced and completely faked.
So many of them call you M and Harry H.
Yes.
How did that start?
Probably at the beginning of us dating.
This is fake. She knows exactly when that happened. The eye search she's got going on there, that's forced and faked, as is the facial expression.
This whole performance felt like a far cry from the person some remember from before she became royalty. People who knew her, or at least observed her back in her acting days, paint a very different picture of who she was.
I knew her a bit. She was nothing like that. She didn't speak like that. Her mannerisms weren't like that. This is all fake.
That stark contrast has led many to believe this current soft and vulnerable persona is entirely constructed. It feels to some like she's playing a role, rather than showing her true self, a far cry from the ambitious individual they saw before. This perceived transformation fuels the idea that what we're seeing now is a carefully crafted image.
She was a real hard-nosed LA girl. Yeah. Now she's like this, oh, I'm soft, I'm mummy, I'm this.
But it's not just about the visuals. The content of what she shared also raised major red flags for critics, especially when it came to her struggles. This is where the podcast really seemed to grate on people, when Meghan started describing her supposedly stressful and overwhelming life. For many ordinary listeners, her complaints just sounded completely out of touch with the realities of everyday people.
I really think when she says she's overwhelmed, it just makes any other mother think, I'm sorry, you haven't lived a day in my life, hon.
The things she described as intense pressure, like early morning school runs, are just normal life for countless parents out there. It's this disconnect that critics jumped on, highlighting how her perception of hardship doesn't align with the daily grind most people face, who often do so without the vast resources she has.
From 6:30 in the morning on drop-off mornings for me, I'm not home till 9.
Boring.
Sounds like a normal day to me, Meghan. Waking up at 6:30 is not that intense. The rest of the world is waking up at that time.
She detailed her routine, talking about packing lunches and managing meetings, painting it as this immense burden. But again, for so many, this is just the standard juggling act of modern life, not some unique, soul-crushing pressure. It makes her attempts to portray herself as struggling seem performative.
I've got to pack school lunches, then I might drive them to school, then I might manage my meetings after that.
Brush my teeth, get both of them up, I get them dressed, get them downstairs, make breakfast.
Talking about it as if she was about to sink underwater from the pressure, I just don't believe it. It's a normal daily routine.
This constant talk of being overwhelmed feeds directly into what many see as her go-to narrative, playing the victim.
I just think she's crying for sympathy, playing the victim.
Critics argue she seems to be perpetually crying out for sympathy, even when there's little apparent reason for it, especially given her privileged lifestyle. It's a pattern that many find grating.
There's nothing to be a victim about here, and there's also no sympathy to be granted for this lifestyle.
This victim complex is a recurring theme in the criticism against her, with some commentators using incredibly strong language to describe it. They see it as a deliberate tactic, rather than a genuine expression of hardship.
She is a malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim.
And the examples of this supposed victimhood often seem, to critics, like complaints about incredibly privileged problems. There's a perception that she's constantly whining about situations that most people would consider fortunate, further alienating those who see her life as anything but difficult.
My castle's too small. Yeah. The queen is mean to me. They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore.
Alongside this, the image she tries to project as this wholesome, down-to-earth mother also comes under scrutiny. Many feel this persona is just another carefully constructed facade that doesn't quite match up with the reality of who she is or how she operates.
She's trying to sell herself as this wholesome mother who's baking cookies and making tea, but we all know that that's not the truth.
This constant portrayal of hardship, while trying to sell a specific, often unconvincing image, leads many to question what her real motivations are. So if the struggles narrative doesn't land, what about brand Meghan's other big push? Trying to be relatable? Critics argue she's almost desperately trying to sell this idea that she's just like us, that she's approachable and down to earth. But for many, it just doesn't ring true.
The one thing she is dying to sell to us is relatability. The one thing she is dying for more than anything is for us to love her.
This intense desire for relatability often comes across as incredibly forced, like she's trying on a costume that doesn't quite fit. These carefully staged moments, meant to make her seem ordinary, often have the opposite effect, highlighting the perceived calculation behind them. It's this trying too hard vibe that makes people skeptical.
When you were saying, like, do you want to just do like cozies and no makeup? I like the idea of like, okay, great, let's let them see us.
Stop it with this. We're just sitting in our living room, in our cozies, barefoot, spilling our secrets.
And what's fueling this constant push for a specific image? Well, many commentators believe it all boils down to cold, hard calculation, PR, manipulation, and, of course, money. They suggest that every move is less about genuine connection and more about strategic brand building.
Everything they do seems so manipulative, calculated, PR motivated, money motivated.
The accusation that financial gain was a primary motivator, especially in her royal marriage, is a persistent one. Some critics are blunt, suggesting she knew exactly what she was doing when she bagged the elephant, so to speak.
She's not important. She married for money. It's very clear she bagged the elephant. She was thrilled she became a, quote, princess.
This ties into the idea that she sought out a prince to gain access to a level of influence and lifestyle that her own career hadn't provided. Critics argue this ambition taints any claims of just wanting a normal, happy life.
Clearly went over to get herself a prince to give her access to this lifestyle that she would have never had access to.
Then there's the glaring contradiction that Bill Maher and others have pointed out. They desperately want privacy and complain about media intrusion, yet they continuously put themselves in the spotlight with books, podcasts, and interviews. It's this wanting it both ways that drives a lot of the public frustration.
These people were so mean to us. We don't want all this attention. And then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
This relentless branding and perceived insincerity haven't gone unnoticed. not just by commentators, but by the wider public, especially concerning her royal connections. Then there's the whole issue of royal titles, which Meghan seems to cling to despite stepping back from official duties. The use of Her Royal Highness, or HRH, especially in private or on branding materials after she was supposedly not to use it, has really rubbed people the wrong way. It just feels off.
She doesn't use it for public gain or commercial gain, but in private she uses it? How cringe and tacky is that?
In fact, there was an instance where she was reportedly caught red-handed using the full title on a gift.
Zoom in here and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex.
This kind of thing fuels the perception that she wants all the perks of royalty without any of the responsibilities or scrutiny that come with it.
A title that was stripped from her when she and Harry made their whole racism debacle and left the UK, left their royal duties, and moved to the US.
For many, using such a formal title in private settings is even more bizarre and telling than using it publicly. It suggests a deep-seated need to identify with that status. Almost like she can't let go of the label. This kind of behavior makes critics question her motives even more.
Now, to top it all off, she is literally using HRH in private, which is just even weirder.
It leads to the unavoidable conclusion for some that this attachment to royal status isn't just a casual thing. They believe it points to a fundamental part of her ambition, suggesting that achieving and maintaining a royal connection was always the ultimate goal for her.
That is just like all the confirmation that I need that this woman is just obsessed with being a royal, that is all this was all about.
And this idea of a long-term plan isn't just pulled out of thin air. There have been whispers and even claims from those reportedly close to her past that her sights were set on royalty long before she ever met Harry.
Denied being interested in the royal family, which she totally was. I know someone who knows the ex-husband who said she had a vision board with Prince Harry on it.
All these perceived pretensions, the title controversies, and the stories of calculated moves have definitely taken a toll on how the public, especially in America, reportedly views them. The sentiment isn't exactly warm and fuzzy for a lot of people.
What do Americans really think of Harry and Meghan? We despise them.
Beyond these issues, there are even darker and more scandalous rumors that have surfaced over time, often discussed in hushed tones or on certain corners of the internet. For instance, there has been unconfirmed speculation, as highlighted by figures like Joe Rogan, linking her to very unsavory circles from her past.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time?
These are serious claims, and it's important to stress they are speculative and unproven.
There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s. Wow.
This obsession with status and the disconnect from public sentiment paints a picture that many find deeply unflattering, leading to harsh personal critiques. The criticism doesn't just stop at her public actions. Some commentators have leveled incredibly harsh accusations about her personality, with terms like malignant narcissist being thrown around. These are serious labels, suggesting a deeply problematic pattern of behavior.
Here is what I think about Meghan, because I think she's a malignant narcissist who is a truly terrible person.
These strong accusations often tie into the persistent rumors and reports about her behavior behind the scenes, particularly with staff. There's a long trail of stories alleging she's incredibly difficult to work for, a bully even, leaving a wake of unhappy former employees.
All the young women in particular who work for her quit in tears. She so wore them down and was so nasty.
This reported behavior leads many to question if there's a fundamental lack of self-awareness at play. Critics suggest that she seems completely oblivious to how her actions are perceived or the negative impact she has on those around her.
This woman has zero self-awareness, and she is never going to go away.
Some go even further, suggesting her core issue is an inability to simply be genuine or relatable on a basic human level. It's this perceived lack of authentic connection that makes it hard for people to warm up to her.
I'm searching for something to like about her. She suffers from such a rare disorder of being unable to just be a human.
This perspective suggests that if people find her unlikable, it's not necessarily their fault or bias. Instead, it might be due to an inherent quality, or lack thereof, that makes her difficult for many to connect with or trust. It's like she's missing that crucial it factor that draws people in.
If you don't like her, it's not your fault. It's because she's extremely unlikable. She has the non-it factor.
Even the podcast host, who was ostensibly there to support Meghan, came under fire for seemingly enabling the narrative. Critics felt the host's interactions were overly sycophantic and didn't challenge Meghan in any meaningful way, making the whole thing feel staged.
Very private letter that Harry wrote about Meghan that they're going to share on this podcast.
So happy for my wife, fully support absolutely everything she's done and continues to do.
That's sweet.
That's sweet.
This fawning behavior from the host only amplified the cringe factor for many listeners. Instead of a genuine conversation, it felt like a carefully managed PR exercise, with the host playing the role of an unquestioning cheerleader, which some found unbearable.
How are you, Meghan? How are you? You know, Meghan, how are you?
If I'm Meghan, I'm like, Your voice is driving me crazy and I'm about to jump over there and put my fists down your throat.
And it's not just her own words. Even when she tries to praise her husband, Harry, it often comes across as forced or performative to critical ears. The way she talks about him sometimes feels like she's trying too hard to sell a perfect love story.
Also a fox. If you haven't noticed, my husband's very, very handsome.
These public declarations of affection, including her choice of pet names for Harry, can sound awkward and insincere to skeptics.
H.
Why do you call him H? That's so dumb sounding.
It all adds to the impression that every aspect of her public life is carefully curated and, for many, not entirely believable.
His heart is even more beautiful.
Oh, but his heart is even more beautiful. This is so forced.
So, after all this, what's the bigger picture? What does this tell us about celebrity, authenticity, and the stories we're sold? Okay, let's bring this all together. What we've seen is a consistent pattern of criticism against Meghan Markle, especially highlighted by that now infamous podcast appearance that had people like Bill just laying into her. The core complaints? A perceived deep-seated inauthenticity, a relentless victim narrative that doesn't match her privileged reality, and questionable branding efforts that often feel desperate and out of touch.
Take a hint from the Queen, the recently departed.
Never complain, never explain, and rarely be heard speaking in public.
Mar's point about taking a hint from the late Queen really underscores the disconnect many feel. It seems the act, the curated image, the constant explanations, none of it is convincing the audience anymore. The world, as some commentators put it, is simply onto her.
The Brits are onto you, America's onto you, the world at large is onto you. You're never going to convince anyone that you're authentic.
If anything, Meghan's situation serves as a stark cautionary tale for modern celebrity. It's a lesson in the immense pitfalls of trying to meticulously curate an image in an age of instant information, and perhaps the dangers of overplaying the victim card until it loses all impact. The harder she seems to try to control the narrative, the more it seems to slip from her grasp, often backfiring spectacularly. It's a tough game when the audience feels they're being played by the star-making machine rather than connected with. The consequences are pretty clear: a severely damaged reputation and a wall of public cynicism that seems to grow with every new venture. The relentless talk about her hard work often lands with a thud, especially when contrasted with the everyday grind of normal people.
It's too much for me. There's only small doses of that podcast I can consume.
Writing the newsletters and writing the social media captions and making sure that all that feels in line. The photography that we want to do, what do I want to wear for those shoots?
The work ethic must just be grueling. Writing social media captions, deciding what she's going to wear.
Ultimately, this whole saga raises bigger questions about celebrity truth in the age of social media. How much of what we see is real? And how easily can a carefully constructed narrative be dismantled by public perception and relentless online scrutiny? It shows that authenticity, or at least a believable version of it, is paramount, and once lost, it's incredibly hard to regain. In the high-stakes theater of public opinion, it appears Meghan's performance has left many critics and a significant portion of the audience unimpressed and unconvinced. The applause, it seems, has largely faded. After all this, can Meghan Markle ever truly repair her image, or is the damage permanent? What do you think is next for her? Share your thoughts below.